RobertBCialdini, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by RobertBCialdini takes a close look at the psychological triggers that drive human behavior and decision-making. Cialdini explores 6 persuasive principles that we often use as shortcuts, such as reciprocation, scarcity, consistency, social proof, liking, and authority. These principles can be manipulated and used against us by compliance professionals like advertisers, salespeople, and con artists who aim to make us comply with their demands or buy a product. By understanding these fundamental principles, we can become more aware of when we are being influenced and learn how to defend ourselves against manipulation.
The power of psychological shortcuts. Mother turkeys use a simple shortcut to identify their chicks, triggering their maternal instincts when they hear the cheep cheep sound. Humans use similar psychological shortcuts in decision-making but are vulnerable to manipulation by compliance professionals like salesmen and advertisers. The 6 basic psychological principles we use as shortcuts are reciprocation, scarcity, consistency, social proof, liking, and authority. It's crucial to identify and defend ourselves against these manipulators and protect ourselves from making decisions that go against our interests. The psychology of persuasion. The first principle of persuasion is the rule of reciprocation. People feel obligated to return favors. Society has labeled those who do not reciprocate favors as moochers and ingrates, and we fear being labeled the same. This principle can be seen in long-term country relations such as Ethiopia sending aid to Mexico in 1985 because in 1935, Mexico sent aid to Ethiopia when Italy had invaded it. People are so keen to rid themselves of the burden of reciprocity that they will often perform much larger favors in return for small ones. However, reciprocity can be abused to persuade a person to do something they may not want to do. People can fight back by learning to identify and resist deliberate attempts to abuse reciprocity. The power of rejection-then-retreat strategy. The rejection-then-retreat strategy is a powerful persuasion technique that makes people feel obliged to reciprocate concessions. This is because the difference between the initial and subsequent offers is magnified, making the latter seem disproportionately cheap, resulting in people feeling they are getting a deal. Labor negotiators and even G. Gordon Liddy in the Watergate scandal have used this technique. However, the opening position must not be too extreme, or it will lead to being seen as a bad faith negotiator. The scarcity principle. The scarcity principle suggests that the more limited the availability of an opportunity or good is, the more we value it. People are more inclined to buy items that have limited availability, especially when competition is involved. The scarcity principle has 2 conditions: availability must have decreased recently, and there must be a competitive situation. The principle is often used in sales and auctions to induce a feeding frenzy among buyers. To avoid making irrational decisions based on scarcity, we need to consider whether we want an item for its usefulness or just the fear of missing out. The scarcity principle can be a powerful influence on our decision-making, but we can overcome its effects by being mindful of our motivations. The forbidden fruit effect. When something is forbidden, it becomes more desirable. This phenomenon is known as the forbidden fruit effect, and it applies to information, objects, and even romantic relationships. Research shows that censorship can make information seem more valuable, leading people to overreact and sympathize with ideas they haven't even heard. Similarly, when something is banned, people become more attached to it and see it as superior. This effect is prevalent in both children and adults and can lead to a deeper attraction to the forbidden thing. The power of commitment. Psychologist Thomas Moriarty's research indicates that people are more likely to help others when they've been asked. Humans have a strong desire for consistency, and our actions often align with our commitments. This puts public commitment as the most powerful driver. The Korean War is a great example of how commitment can manipulate self-image. Written commitments have a stronger effect than verbal ones. Commitments, even small ones, can change our perception of ourselves, making us more likely to make larger commitments or purchases. The psychology behind initiation rituals and inner change. Initiation rituals involving pain and degradation have always been a common practice across different groups worldwide. The rationale behind this is that the effort needed to attain membership brings about a sense of commitment to the group. However, groups want their members to make an inner choice to participate in the degradation, creating a lasting inner change. Compliance professionals, such as car dealerships, use the lowball trick to generate inner change. To defend against this manipulation, individuals need to ask themselves if they would make the same decision had they known the true price beforehand. The power of social proof. Social proof is a powerful influence, leading us to rely on the behavior of others to determine the correct course of action, particularly in uncertain situations. Research shows that laugh tracks make us laugh longer and more often, even at bad jokes, because we assume that others find them funny. This principle is also used by church ushers who salt their collection baskets and companies that advertise products as best-selling. However, when many people are involved in an emergency situation, it diminishes the personal responsibility felt by each participant and they are less likely to intervene. To avoid this, it's best to single out an individual from the group and direct a clear help request to them. The Werther Effect. People tend to imitate others, especially those who are similar to themselves. This tendency can have negative effects, such as the Werther Effect, where news of a suicide can lead to an increase in car and airplane crashes. The effect is strongest in people similar to the person who committed suicide. Marketers often use this dynamic to sell products by featuring endorsements from ordinary people. It's essential to be aware of counterfeit social proof to avoid falling into this trap. The tricks of compliance. The power of compliance techniques is further emphasized by the effectiveness of the Tupperware party business model. By tapping into human behavior such as reciprocity, social proof, and leveraging existing friendships, compliance professionals are able to gain our compliance. Moreover, compliance professionals know which switches to pull to make us like them. They use flattery, physical attractiveness, and cooperation towards a shared goal to influence our liking of them. The association of things with people contributes hugely to their likability. To prevent the manipulation of likability, individuals should be alert for signs of sudden and intense liking, as this could be a symptom of manipulation at play. The power of authority. The book explores the deeply ingrained tendency of humans to obey authority figures without questioning and how this tendency can be exploited by those who abuse it. The book highlights the experiment conducted by renowned psychologist Stanley Milgram in the 1960s, which showed that volunteers would administer potentially lethal electric shocks to others simply because they were told to do so by an authority figure. What's more surprising is the fact that participants did so without bothering to question the authority figure's orders, highlighting the power of authority. The author provides another example of a nurse who got written instructions from a doctor to treat a person with an ache in his right ear, administer the medicine in our ear. As absurd as it may sound, she proceeded to put the drops in the patient's anus without questioning the order. This incident proves that authority negates independent thinking. Furthermore, the book explains how symbols of authority such as titles, clothes, and props greatly influence our perception of someone. The author cites Milgram's experiment, where the white lab coat and clipboard of the authority figure convinced participants to obey them and torture their fellow test subjects. Similarly, con artists exploit the power of these symbols by donning uniforms, suits, and even priests' robes if the need arises. The book suggests that being aware of the power of authority is the first line of defense against those who abuse it. To quickly and easily recognize if an authority figure should be obeyed, one should ask two questions. First, is the person really an authority or merely masquerading as one? Second, how honest can we expect the authority figure to be in this situation? While there are some authority figures such as judges or certain physicians that we should listen to, the book warns that we should be cautious of people who abuse our tendency to obey authority. The author explains that knowing the fundamental principles of persuasion such as reciprocation, scarcity, consistency, social proof, liking, and authority will help us protect ourselves against them. In summary, the book sheds light on the power of authority and its ability to influence our behavior without us questioning it. By being aware and asking the right questions, we can protect ourselves against those who abuse this power.
Throughout Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, Robert B. Cialdini sheds light on the different methods that people use to persuade us in various situations. The 6 key principles he discusses: reciprocation, scarcity, consistency, social proof, liking, and authority, play a significant role in driving our decision-making processes, often without our conscious awareness. By becoming familiar with these principles, we can be more mindful of our own decision-making process and better equipped to identify when others are attempting to manipulate us. Consequently, we can make more informed choices and steer clear of the pitfalls of persuasion. The key takeaway is to always remain vigilant, question the intentions behind the persuasive tactics we encounter, and make informed decisions based on a deeper understanding of these psychological principles at play.